In the year 690 AD, a ceremony took place in the city of Luoyang that defied over 1,000 years of political tradition. A woman, 65 years old, ascended the throne not as a regent, not as a dowager, and not as a consort, but as Huangdi, the emperor. This was Wu Zetian. To the Confucian scholars of the time, this was a cosmic impossibility, described in the chronicles as a hen crowing at dawn, a reversal of the natural order that signaled the end of the world. Yet, for the next 15 years, the world did not end. Instead, the empire expanded, the economy stabilized, and the very foundations of Chinese governance were rewritten. To understand how a woman born into the merchant class managed to seize the mandate of heaven, we have to look past the later histories written by men who hated her. We have to look at the Tang Dynasty of the 7th century. A time of immense fluidity, where the old aristocratic families were clashing with a rising class of bureaucrats, and where the borders of China were stretching further west than ever before. Wu Zhao, as she was then known, was born in 624 AD. Her father was a successful lumber merchant who had supported the founding of the Tang Dynasty, earning him a title and a place in the new meritocracy. Unlike many girls of her era, Wu was highly educated. She read the classics, studied music, and learned the nuances of political philosophy. According to the New Book of Tang, her father encouraged this, recognizing a sharp, analytical mind that would eventually prove more dangerous than any blade. At the age of 14, Wu's beauty and reputation for intelligence earned her a summons to the Imperial Palace in Chang'an. She was to be a tyrant, a 5th-ranked concubine, for the aging Emperor Taizong. When her mother wept at the parting, Wu is famously said to have replied, "How do you know? It is not my fortune to meet the Son of Heaven. Why cry like a child?" This pragmatic, almost cold ambition would define her life. Life in the harem was a gilded cage, a place of intense competition where hundreds of women vied for a single moment of the emperor's attention. For 10 years, Wu remained a low-level consort. She did not bear Taizong any children, which usually meant a woman was destined for a life of obscurity, or upon the emperor's death, a forced retirement to a Buddhist convent. However, Wu was observant. While serving Taizong, she took note of how he governed. She saw the importance of the censorate, the officials tasked with criticizing the emperor's mistakes, and the power of the burgeoning civil service examinations. She also caught the eye of Taizong's son, the Crown Prince Li Ji, the future Emperor Gaozong. This was a scandalous and dangerous gamble. In the strict hierarchy of the court, a son taking his father's concubine was considered incestuous. Yet, when Taizong died in 649, and Wu was sent to Ganye Temple to have her head shaved and live as a nun, she did not stay there for long. By 651, Gaozong, now emperor, brought her back to the palace. Dao and modern historians debate whether this was purely a matter of romance or a calculated political move by Gaozong to counter the influence of his existing wife, Empress Wang, and the senior consort, pure consort Xiao Aobichayo. Wu returned not as a nun but as a favorite. She was promoted to the rank of Zhaoyi, the highest of the 9 secondary concubines. From this position, she began a systematic removal of her rivals. This is where the historical record becomes dark and deeply contested. The most famous accusation against her is that she murdered her own infant daughter in 654 and framed Empress Wang for the crime. The Ziji Tongyan, a history written centuries later, claims Wu strangled the child herself after Empress Wang had visited the nursery. When the emperor found the dead infant, Wu broke down in tears, and the blame fell on the empress, who had no alibi. Modern scholars, however, point out that the earliest records of the era do not mention this murder. It is entirely possible the child died of natural causes. Infant mortality was high even in palaces, and Wu simply used the tragedy to her political advantage. Whether by murder or by masterful manipulation, the result was the same. Empress Wang and consort Xiao were deposed, imprisoned, and eventually executed. In 655, despite the fierce opposition of the old guard of chancellors, Wu was crowned empress. Now, as empress consort, Wu was no longer just a resident of the harem. She was the emperor's partner. Emperor Taizong was often sickly, suffering from chronic headaches and dizziness, possibly strokes or hypertension. As his health declined, he increasingly relied on Wu to read state papers and make decisions. By 660, she was effectively the co-ruler. The court began to refer to them as the two sages. This was the turning point. Wu didn't just hold power. She exercised it with a competence that frustrated her enemies. She reorganized the government to bypass the aristocratic families of the Northwest, who had dominated Chinese politics for centuries. She promoted men of talent from the South and from lower-class backgrounds, using the imperial examinations as a filter for loyalty. To these new men, she wasn't a usurper. She was their patron. But the path to total control required more than just administrative reform. It required the elimination of any challenge from within her own family. Taizong and Wu had 4 sons. As Taizong's health worsened, the question of succession became a battlefield. The eldest son, Li Hong, was a popular crown prince, but he died suddenly after a banquet with his mother. The official history hints at poison. Modern historians suggest tuberculosis. The second son, Li Xian, was brilliant, but clashed with his mother. He was accused of treason, exiled, and eventually forced to commit suicide. When Taizong finally died in 683, the third son, Zhang, took the throne. He lasted only 6 weeks. When he tried to appoint his father-in-law to a powerful position, Wu showed no hesitation. She entered the throne room, had him demoted to a commoner, and sent him into exile. She replaced him with her youngest son, Taizong, who was essentially a puppet, kept in a separate wing of the palace, and forbidden from performing any official duties. Wu was now the Empress Dowager and Regent, but the title was still a secondary one. She wanted the ultimate authority. To get it, she had to overcome the fundamental Confucian tenet that a woman could not hold the mandate of heaven. Her solution was twofold: a secret police force and a new religious ideology. Under the direction of officials like Lai Junchun, Wu established a reign of terror. She placed petition boxes throughout the capital, encouraging citizens to report on treasonous officials. Torture became a standardized tool of the state. The Manual of Entrapment, a chilling document from the era, describes how to break a man's will. Thousands of aristocrats and officials were purged. While this sounds like the behavior of a tyrant, and in many ways, it was, It was also a structural dismantling of an old, stagnant elite that had long hampered the efficiency of the Tang state. Simultaneously, Wu turned to Buddhism. While Confucianism offered her no path to the throne, Buddhism provided a loophole. In 690, her supporters discovered the Great Cloud Sutra, which prophesied the reincarnation of the Maitreya Buddha as a female monarch who would bring an age of prosperity and peace. Wu spent lavishly on Buddhist temples and colossal statues, most notably the Great Buddha at the Longmun Grottoes, which is said to have been carved in her likeness. By framing her rule as a divine necessity, she provided a moral and spiritual justification that bypassed the gendered restrictions of the state bureaucracy. In the autumn of 690, she finally took the plunge. She forced her son Taizong to abdicate and proclaimed the founding of a new dynasty, the Zhou. As the emperor of the Zhou Dynasty, Wu Zetian moved the capital permanently to Luoyang, which she renamed the Divine Capital. Her reign was characterized by a fascinating contradiction: internal surveillance and external expansion. She successfully campaigned against the Western Turks and the Tibetan Empire, securing the Silk Road and ensuring the flow of trade that made China the wealthiest nation on earth. She was also a pioneer of social welfare. She commissioned the biographies of famous women, a work designed to give women a historical lineage of power. She reduced taxes on farmers, encouraged the publication of agricultural manuals, and even established a primitive form of a suggestion box for commoners to voice grievances directly to the throne. According to the Tang Shu, the population grew significantly during her reign, a classic indicator of a successful Chinese administration. However, the later years of her reign were clouded by the influence of the Zhang brothers, two young, handsome courtiers who became her favorites. As Wu aged into her 70s, she retreated into the inner palace, leaving the Zhang brothers to act as gatekeepers. This created a power vacuum that the old Tang loyalists were eager to fill. The court became a nest of rumors and resentment. The Zhang brothers were accused of corruption and of manipulating the emperor's fading health. In 705, a group of senior generals and officials, led by the veteran statesman Zhang Jian, decided they had waited long enough. They launched a palace coup. They fought their way into the emperor's private quarters, executed the Zhang brothers on the spot, and confronted the 80-year-old Wu Zetian. In a final show of the iron will that had carried her through 7 decades, Wu did not plead for her life. When the conspirators demanded she abdicate in favor of her son Zhongzong, she reportedly scolded them for their rudeness before eventually agreeing. She was moved to a secondary palace, where she died peacefully a few months later. Before her death, she made a request that would baffle historians for centuries. She asked to be buried alongside her husband, Emperor Taizong, at the Qianling Mausoleum. But more importantly, she requested that her tombstone, the unmarked stele, be left completely blank. In the tradition of Chinese emperors, the stele is where your achievements are carved for eternity. By leaving it blank, Wu Zetian was making a final, defiant statement. She knew that the historians who came after her would try to rewrite her story. She knew they would call her a witch, a murderer, and a thief of the throne. By leaving the stone empty, she was saying, "Let the world judge me by what I did, not by what is written." And judge her they did. For millennium, She was the ultimate cautionary tale of what happens when women are allowed to rule. Traditional histories focused on her cruelty and her sexual scandals. It wasn't until the 20th century that historians began to look at the economic data and the administrative records, which showed a period of remarkable stability and growth. Was Wu Zetian a villain? If we judge her by the standards of a 7th century monarch, her cruelty was fairly standard. Her predecessors and successors all executed rivals and purged families to secure their power. The difference was that Wu did it as a woman, and she did it against the most powerful families in the land. She broke the aristocratic monopoly on power and opened the doors of government to anyone with the merit to pass an exam. A system that would define China until the 20th century. She was a woman who saw a world that told her no at every turn, and she simply decided that the world was wrong. She used religion, secret police, and economic reform to bend the arc of history to her will. Today, we are left with a legacy that is as complex as the woman herself. She was a poet, a patron of the arts, a ruthless politician, and a visionary administrator. Her Zhou Dynasty ended with her, and the Tang was restored. But the Tang that returned was different, more professional, less aristocratic, and more culturally diverse. As you look at that blank stone stele in Shaanxi province, you have to wonder, if you were in her position, a teenager in a harem with no path to power but your own wits, would you have been any less ruthless? Or is her story a reminder that in the game of history, the only truly unforgivable sin is losing? Wu Zetian remains a mirror. What we see in her often says more about our own views on power and gender than it does about a woman who died 1,300 years ago. She was the only one to ever hold the title. Perhaps she knew that a blank stone was the only way to ensure she would never truly be silenced. What do you think of Wu Zetian's legacy? Was she a necessary reformer who had to be harsh to survive? Or does her path to the throne disqualify her achievements? Let us know in the comments below. And let's discuss the complexities of the mandate of heaven.